Yes, Elana, were you waiting to speak?
Yeah. Um, I think I'm trying to sort of put my thoughts together because it feels pretty charged just after, there are a lot of people sharing a lot of things. There's a lot of emotion in the room. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of anger. Um, and I'm hearing it both from my board colleagues, but also a lot from the community of feeling not heard and not responded to. And I know that that's a very frustrating feeling. And I know that's nobody's intention. And I think we need to do better to make sure that people feel heard and responded to. So, a couple points. I don't know if it will all come together coherently, but I'll try. Um, I think this is really a hard conversation to have when we're not in direct dialogue with people who keep coming to us and saying they want to be in direct dialogue. So, I tonight I heard frustration in the comments, but I didn't take it personally. And I would encourage my colleagues not to take it personally, that it's coming from a place of feeling not heard, and it's coming from multiple attempts to make requests in different ways that are not being responded to. And I don't think I'll go back to that point that I think we need to find another way to be in direct dialogue because this format doesn't work. And the board meeting maybe isn't the place. I mean, I hear the ask for, can there be an agenda item so we can have more discussion? Can there be a forum so we can have more discussion? Can there, and then the parents are proposing, or this advocacy group is holding a forum because we haven't provided a forum for that. So, I don't, I think they're sort of modeling another way to do this. And I know there are some meetings that happen, but I think that I'm a little bit troubled to hear. What I took away from hearing all the comments tonight, and there were numerous comments from many different people, some same, some new, but that what I heard was a ton of expertise in our community on a number of issues. And it is a missed opportunity when we're not harnessing that with everybody that wants to work together. I also heard, or what came to me as I was listening also, is that we're all one community. It is not the community versus the board. It is not the superintendent versus the community. We are all working toward the same thing. And so that has been breached in some way. And I was particularly struck by the comment around how trauma creates separation. And so that experiencing that when there has been a hurt in the community, when there has been something that's wrong, the thing that we need to look to, especially as a learning community, is what can we learn from that? How do we heal from that? And I think we're all on the same page about doing that. We want to do that, but there's not a clear path that has been communicated about the process that we are going to go through to do that. And I have heard suggestions from the community. I've heard some suggestions here, but I think we need to really put out some more affirmative communication around what that's going to be. Because I think this keeps getting brought up because there is some sense, and it is being perceived, that this is not being taken seriously enough by the administration and the board, which I know is not true, but that perception exists, and so it is true. So I think that's important. And my question is what for us to think about, we don't have to answer right now, but what would allow for useful dialogue? And I think parameters around how we talk to each other, ground rules are always important. And I think, we do a good job in that at the schools, and, we've done that a little bit at the board. And I think taking a recess is always a good idea to sort of cool temperatures. And I learned that. And there's also something to being able to sit with the fire that's in the room sometimes. And that's okay too. Right. So I think both are okay. And that we have some rules for allowing for safe dialogue and how we talk to one another. And maybe that needs to be more, we spend a little time in our meetings, again, figuring out what that is, or figuring that out when we start a forum. Because yes, we should all speak respectfully to one another, not only because that's a better way to communicate, but also because that's what we want to model for our students and for how we do things. Right. So I think all those things are true. I think, yeah, I was also struck some of the, I was struck by so much expertise in the community. And I agree with you, Andrew, that so many beautiful statements, but I also don't need beautiful statements to hear the emotion and to hear what's going on. And we've heard it from many meetings. And I think we need to map out kind of what our process is as the board and as the superintendent, and, and maybe those are different. Maybe the administration has one approach and maybe the board as a board does something. I don't know. And I do have another question on another topic once we kind of move forward.
Any other comments or thoughts before we move off? I think, Elana, you were waiting to say something else.
I just wanted to sort of ask a little bit about that because I heard a little bit of similar comments from Bill too just now about that. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is I'm hearing stories of individuals and frustrations. And I'm also hearing a question about, is this a systemic problem? And so I think that's where we need to provide an answer. And, is there a systemic issue here? Because I think people are sharing personal stories that might relate to a larger thing or not. But that's where that's the question that's being asked. And so I think when we sort of talk about, well, are people working through their own systems? Yeah, I hear a lot of advocacy in here in the room. I'm not concerned that parents are not advocating for their children to get what they need in the classroom. What they're asking is the district, is there something happening? And the questions that are being asked are, if something went wrong, what have we learned from it? And what are we doing different? And we've provided some answers to that, but I think we need to provide more communication around that. And I totally agree that COVID has made things more complicated and has distanced us. But then if that's the case, we need to be more proactive about communicating and do that better.
I agree with that, Marjorie. I think the fear is stemming from the two events that are most widely discussed in these forums. There clearly are other concerns that some people have raised even tonight. I heard one or two new ones. But I think that's where the fear is. And I don't share that fear because maybe I have an inside track, but I think we're not doing the best job we could do to communicate why parents shouldn't be fearful and what we have done and are doing to address the concerns of not just the advocacy group, but parents in general who have children in, I shouldn't just say that, not just the special education classes, but all students. Because I think that now there's becoming a frenzy, like, oh my God, things are so badly broken. Don't share that opinion. But I think that we have to do a better job.
One other comment, I think I sort of said this, but just with the expertise in the community is I think there's sometimes a missed opportunity when we don't have ways for parents to plug in more. I mean, I know there's the student, every school has a PTO. We have parent council, which is the representatives of every school. We have these learning cafes. But if parents are asking to be involved in certain discussions, I think I was blown away by how many specialists we had just tonight and how many speech pathologists we happen to have in the community. How many, people that think about this and not only think about it, but they care and they want to help the school. That we all want to work in the same direction. So let's harness that energy and use that. And I heard some specific suggestions, and I look forward to sort of discussing how we could use those or why we might not want to use those specific models. But I think we should discuss that further. Someone who has learned about different approaches to reading just with my kids learning to read, and as somebody I tutored reading in college, but I'm wondering, because I still, again, repeat this, but heard a lot of expertise in the community and people wanting to be in dialogue around this. And so I could bring forward what I've heard, but I think it might be more useful to have some direct dialogue with community members who are interested in talking about this and then from there coming up with some solutions, or clarifying, kind of, asking these questions, because that it'd be better. But what?
I think there has been meetings.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't here, but I heard people asking for meetings tonight. So, the other thing that I wanted to ask about was just this is a you don't have to answer now, but just what is when we think about curriculum, we think about who we're designing curriculum for, who we're doing it. are we aiming for the middle? Are we aiming to make sure it kind of brings all students? How do we take into account different learners? And I mean, I think this is a larger philosophical question, but I'm curious about that. What about the people that are sort of excelling, and how do you design curriculum that meets all those needs, and where are you kind of, maybe you're aiming multiple places, but it's about that.
And so